So, hi guys. Thank you for listening to my previous two videos. If you have, this whole new concept is very new for me, and maybe I should just give you some reasonings behind why I've done it. Really, I know that it's not just about the me show. It's not the me show. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of other people out there in the world who have medical conditions, who have been unable to explain why they feel the way they do. They have been either misdiagnosed, diagnosed, or undiagnosed, and still have lots of questions. They've not been able to understand the process of what they're going through, including myself. There's been guilt attributed to why you feel the way you do, and when you do feel bad, because you feel as though you are putting your family members and people you love out. And I just really wanted to put these videos out there really for other people who, as I say, are going through things. And you know, if you have been misdiagnosed, or if you haven't been diagnosed yet, and you think you're going mad and it's not real, and you're pestering your doctors, and you're pestering your family, and you're reading, and you become Dr. Google, or Goodle, as my mum would say. Sorry, mum. And you know, you're searching and you're seeking and you're searching for answers to what's wrong and to why you feel the way you do. This is why I've done this, because I've been in that position, and I'm still in that position. So firstly, I do live somewhere, but this in my car is one of the places where I can have a bit of solace, and it has air conditioning. And where I am in the world at the moment, it's very, very hot, and I think there's some menopausal issues going on, and so I'm boiling hot. So that's number one. Number two, I'm feeling a bit rough today. I really didn't have a very good sleep last night. Woke up in the middle of the night with the worst headache you could ever have, and was like, I thought, okay, if I have the fan on me, that would help. I'll go and drink some water, and none of that helped. And this was about 3 o'clock in the morning. Ended up just taking some headache tablets and just went back to sleep. But this is part and parcel of the illness and things that can happen. And I'm not saying that people without an illness can't wake up in the middle of the night without a headache, but I know that it's attributed to what I have and the issues that I have. So firstly, I'm going to apologise for maybe looking a bit rough. Secondly, I've still got this crazy headache, so my eyes do squint a little bit, and I have this raspy voice issue, which you may be able to hear at the moment, and that's another issue. But we're going to go back and we're going to recap on 1 and 2 very quickly. So 2011, I started having some illnesses, some issues, didn't know what those issues were, and had tests and so on and so on, and it started to develop into having seizures, epilepsy, memory loss, speech loss, von Willebrand's, blood disorder, blood clotting disorder, genetic, by the way, heart failure, high blood pressure. And I think we left at a point where I was talking about my kidneys, where I had been referred to this fantastic doctor, Dr. Soper. Big up Dr. Soper. And yeah, so whilst in hospital and being under the various cardiologists to find out what was happening with the heart, I met with Dr. Soper, and he did some tests, blood tests, excuse me, urine tests, and so on and so on and so on. And there was an indication that I had what you call CKD, which is chronic kidney disease. And on top of that, my blood pressure was going very high. So, unbeknown to me, and maybe to you guys out there as well, because as I said, I became Dr. Google. You know, I was researching loads of things. I didn't even realize that my kidneys, blood pressure, and heart failure were all connected. I had no idea. I had no concept. No one didn't tell me. I didn't know. But then I began to know, because I realized that if your blood pressure was high and untreated and continued to be high, it would affect your kidneys. How would you know that you had a problem with your kidneys? Well, as I said, for me, I didn't know, but there was warning signs along the way, because urinary tract infections are also linked to the kidneys. And so, as I said, I would get this flank pain and so on and so on and so on and so on. But just to let you guys know, sometimes those things are linked and we would never know. Or unless you get the test and you know, maybe I'm stupid. I don't know. So, at the end of being discharged from cardiology, being an inpatient to find out what was going on, they said it wasn't a heart attack. But on the monitor, they could see there was some up and down peaks and flows and so on and so on. So I was discharged with some beta blockers to try and keep my heart stable. As part of having heart failure, you have a triple range of medication anyway. You have beta blockers, you have your blood pressure tablets, and then there's a third one that I can't remember, which will come back to me. But you have a triple range of medication, and that's really to keep everything just stable. It's to minimize palpitations, it's to minimize your blood pressure going up so high that you end up having a stroke. And the other one, and I still can't remember what it is, but it will come back to me that there are 3. If anybody remembers, please tap in and tell me. I can't remember. So I was discharged with this medication, but they said they wanted to do an angiogram. But lo and behold, because I have the von Willebrand's disease, which, as I said, is a clotting disorder, I think it kind of put them off, because the hospital where I was at, they didn't have what was called factor 8. So when you have von Willebrand's, if you have any sort of medical intervention where blood is going to be drawn, essentially you need factor 8. And this particular hospital, they didn't carry factor 8. They weren't prepared for von Willebrand's patients. So if they were going to do anything with me, especially an angiogram, which was quite an in-depth procedure, they'd have to go to another hospital, or they'd have to either send me to another hospital, or they would have to send off for factor 8. And throughout, again, my journey with my illnesses, this has become a major issue. And I would think in the 20th century, in order for hospitals or interconnecting departments to be able to get hold of factor 8 or anything that a patient may need in order to facilitate their procedure, it would be something quite simple, but it's not. So they said, no, we're not going to do the angiogram. We're going to do a wait and see, and we're going to take it from there. So I was discharged still with continuous palpitations, chest pain, and I was sent home. I also remember, they gave me a spray. Now you have to really bear with me, because my memory is so bad and I just can't remember what these things are called, but it's a spray and it's a red bottle. Please tap in and tell me. And what that spray is, that you spray in your mouth as soon as you get like chest pains, and what it does, it opens the arteries in your heart, enable the blood to flow, again eliminating or helping to prevent you from having a heart attack. So I have the 3 tablets and I have the spray. And then I also was given something called butamide, which some of you may know, and that is a water tablet. Great. A water tablet, yeah. Any of you out there that takes water tablets, you would know what I mean. So you really have to pace yourself if you're going to go out. And even if you're not going to go out, you still have to pace yourself. Because if you're going to be really tired, or not if you're going to be really tired, if you have what I have, which you'll eventually find out at the end of these videos, although we are building up a big portfolio, or as one doctor said, a plethora of illnesses, you will realize that half the time you spend sleeping because you just don't have any energy. So we're on about 5 things now. The water tablets to eliminate the fluid that was building up from my body, reducing the ankle swelling, and also with heart failure and all of that, you get a distension of stomach. So ladies out there, if you see that your stomach's big and you think, oh, I'm putting on weight and I can't lose this weight, don't just look at the weight issues. Please don't just look at it as if to say, I'm eating lots of cream cakes, or I'm eating lots of biscuits or sweeties or jelly babies, jelly beans. Those are my downfall. Don't just look at it at that. Sometimes, and not always, I'm not a doctor, but I've been through this. It's not just a case that you're putting on weight. And again, in a few episodes down the line, we'll come to something else that could potentially be causing that weight that you're not losing, or you're losing too much. Yeah. So we have passed now the scenes where I have gone to the cardiologist. So I'm now under a cardiologist, and just as a side issue, I ended up going privately for that because I didn't really have much faith in the hospital that I was under. And that's another thing. Again, if you're not happy with the hospital that you're under, either ask for your doctor to refer you somewhere else, because you're entitled to that. Lots of people don't know. Number 1. Or number 2, if you're able to tap into something privately, do so. Please do so, because for me, I did a bit of both, and it did cause some confusion at times, but I was able, when I was in my right state of mind, to pull things together, to pull my medical notes together so I could present it to Dr. Private, or I could present it to Dr. NHS. And if I'm honest, Dr. NHS really didn't like it some of the times, and it depended who Dr. NHS was. But I did that a few times to get to where I am today. And I think for me, if it wasn't for the fact that I had my right head on at times, and I was able to do that, I wouldn't really be here where I am today. So again, part of the reasons behind the video, fight for your health, fight for what you're feeling, fight for, if you know that you do not feel right in yourself, don't let anybody tell you. Don't worry about it. It's nothing. Oh, you know, I had that. That's one thing that people tended to do with me. They compared similarities in what they had, and that's fine. I hear it, because, you know, they're trying to keep you calm and keep you relaxed, and say to you, well, you know, it's not as bad as you think it might be, because I had it and I took some indigestion tablets and it was fine. No. Or I had it and I had some Robertson. That's what they say in America, right? Robertson. And it was fine. I had it and I took some cough mixture and it's fine. Cough mixture, Robertson, and any other over-the-counter things are not going to cure heart failure, kidney disease, and any other plethora of illnesses that people might have. It's not going to cure it. So let's just not even go there. So take that advice and that information with gratitude and politeness and nod. Okay, right. But you know what you're feeling inside, just like I know what I was feeling inside, and I continue to feel inside. Nobody out there can tell me what I'm feeling and that I should stop going to the doctors, wasting their time. I don't care. I've had arguments with doctors. I was even thrown out of a hospital recently. We'll come back to that. That's a funny one. But do not let anybody tell you that what you are feeling is not something. Yeah? So, we've passed the heart failure. We parked that now. We're on medication for that. We're working with it. It's very difficult. You don't get cured overnight. And on top of that, a lot of the medications that you're taking, they counteract one another. So you can't take this one within half an hour of this one. And you've got to have this one with food, but you've got to have this one after food. And obviously with the water tablets, you can't even have that one if you want to go down the road, even if you want to go and pick up medication, because you know part way there you're going to want to go to the toilet, and the person who's driving you, the person who's taking you, are going to get so fed up because you're just wanting to stop every 5 minutes to go to the toilet. So you stop taking your water tablets for a little while, and then you start swelling up again, and then you start gurgling, because sometimes it can cause problems with your lungs. Too much water. When you have heart failure, you're only meant to drink a certain amount of fluid a day, because what happens is that fluid can build up in your body. Now try telling that to somebody when it's like, it's not even like that today, to be honest. Today's not bad. But when it was 35 degrees last week in the UK, and all you wanted to do was drink and drink and drink and drink and drink and drink and drink. Tell that to somebody who's got heart failure. It's deep breath. So we've got all the other issues from the 2 videos, and now we've got the heart failure. But Dr. Soper is saying you have something systemic. You have something systemic, but excuse me, we couldn't put our finger on it. So he did some blood tests, a huge range of blood tests, and those blood tests would have been expensive. And the reason why I know that, because I was actually going to go down that road privately myself, and it just couldn't work. I couldn't do it. So I looked at the blood tests that he had sent me for, and I tapped them in to Dr. Goodall, and I realised that these blood tests were associated with lupus. Okay, lupus. Now, for those of you that don't know what lupus is one of the top autoimmune diseases. And do you know what? I'm actually assuming that everybody knows what autoimmune is. I mean, I only knew about lupus because a friend of mine had it. And that's, I didn't even know much about it. I just heard the word lupus. But there are so many autoimmune diseases out there. Diabetes is an autoimmune disease. So an autoimmune disease, effectively what that is that the body is attacking itself. It's attacking itself. So it's not recognizing certain things that are in the body that should be there. So for example, in diabetes, the pancreas is being attacked, and is unable to produce its natural insulin. Hence the reason why some people have to take insulin to replace the insulin that cannot be produced by the pancreas because it's been attacked by its autoimmunity. I didn't know that. But in research with Mr. Goodall, I did. And there are hundreds of autoimmune diseases. I didn't know that myself. So the body is so complex. It's so complex. And we just take everything for granted. We take so much for granted with our bodies and our daily living and you know, being able to do things. And the moment you can't do those things, which I'm in that position, you look back when you could do those things as a young person, perhaps as a child, and you took those things for granted. So another message I'm going to put out there is that if you are able to walk, if you are able to talk, if you are able to communicate, if you are able to run, hip, skip, jump, sing, scream, any of those things, praise God. Because when an illness hits you, or if you are even born with an illness, deformity, or anything like that, you're not able to do those things. So we had lupus thrown into the big mix. What shall I call this mix? Shall I call it the big pot of illnesses? I could do that. And we had lupus thrown into the mix. So I looked at these blood tests and I thought, hold on a minute. I am sure that many years ago, 2001, 1999, something had happened to me, but I can't even remember exactly what it was. But it was questioned whether I had lupus. Yes, it's just come back to me. It was called something like erythema nodosum. All it was really was some lumps on my legs that were coming up. Didn't know why, didn't know what they were. Didn't affect me so much, but I just wondered why I was having these things. It just didn't make sense. And I went to the hospital and they did some blood tests. And I just remember the word lupus bantered around. So at this point, after being ill from 2011 now to about 2013, I was like, okay, I need to start doing my own investigation. I can't rely on other people to have my life in their hands. My life in their hands. Can't do it. No. So I requested my medical information. Now at that time, I believe you had to pay £50 for your medical records. And I can tell you, my doctor's surgery was really miffed when I asked for mine. Hey, I wanted my medical records. I do believe now that you get your medical records free because of the new data legislation that's just been passed. And now you get it on a disc. I didn't get it on a disc. I got a big box of papers. That's what I got. And so I sat in my living room for about 5 days sifting through all these bits of paper. And I then decided I was going to divide them up into the various things. And as I went through this humongous box of papers, I realized that there were heart issues that dated back, lung issues, breast lumps removed, fibroids, cesareans, so on and so on and so on. So what I thought was these new kind of illnesses from 2011, it wasn't the case. Things that were happening to me were building up from years ago. One of the bits of paper I had showed that I actually had an angiogram. Now, I can't even remember. I can't remember. I had an angiogram, and it actually showed something up on there. I mean, what it is now, I can't even probably pronounce it. And at that time, that was about, my goodness, about 25 years ago, I was put on beta blockers because they saw something on this angiogram. Where am I going with this? Where I'm going is that sometimes our bodies shows us signs and symptoms from years and years before, even into our childhood, that were probably dismissed by our parents. Maybe, I'm not saying that they were, I'm just saying maybe they were. Attention-seeking behaviour. Maybe, I don't know. Or, stop being silly, get on with it, get up. There's nothing wrong with you. I've got a headache. I've got pains in my chest. Get up. But we do it. We even do it to our own kids. We think it's a ruse for trying to get out from going to school. But my point is that potentially some of the things that we are going through now, our journey, not my journey. This is about our journey. Yeah, our journey. You and 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 you. Our journey could be things potentially that were showing up from an early age, and we didn't recognize those things. So how did I find that out? How did I know? I remembered some things. I'm not going to remember everything. My parents aren't going to remember anything. You don't expect them to. But when I got my medical records, I was surprised at the amount of times that I would go back to my doctors with the same things. My blood pressure was diagnosed about 15 years ago, high blood pressure. But what would happen, it would be put off and they would say, okay, let's check it again in 6 months' time. And I would say, at that time I was, oh yes, okay, we'll do that. I agree. Because I just wanted to be out of that doctor's surgery. Now you can't get me out of the doctor's surgery. So I would just agree. So all those years I had high blood pressure and I wasn't taking anything for it. Now, you could ask me, is that the cause of why I have CKD now, chronic kidney disease now? I couldn't tell you. I don't know. Maybe if there's a doctor out there or somebody who knows, they can tell us. But I don't know about that. But what I do know is that as time was going on, my illnesses were building up, and where I'm going to end up, I don't really know. I can't tell you. So we had some tests for lupus. We had some tests for lupus. Marched off to a central London hospital where I saw a very robust Spanish doctor who asked me a number of questions. Now, I went there prepared. I realized that some of the lupus type things I'd had. Miscarriages, cold sores, joint pains, etc, 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 etc. And it's like a tick off box. You have to tick off. Do they have this? Do they have to do that? If I'm honest, she wasn't really interested. So I had everything neatly packaged in little folders, little wallets, and she wasn't really interested. But what she said she would do is that she would do some blood tests. Now, I already had with me blood tests that I had taken for lupus many years ago, which said I was kind of borderline. They use these things called titers. I've no idea. Titers? What? Titers. And it showed something, and on my medical records up to this day it still shows that. But when my blood tests came back, she was adamant I did not have lupus, but concurred, dun 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 dun, you have fibromyalgia. Okay, thank you. this is the end of this episode. Please subscribe. Please let me know your thoughts. Please let me know if you have been through anything like this. And I look forward to speaking to you maybe very shortly. Thank you.